Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there, and welcome to the show. It's June 22nd, 62222. Guys, I'm hoping that you've been watching the January 6th hearings. To me, they've been riveting. And I felt that yesterday they were it was hard to watch some of yesterday, because yesterday highlighted the toll that these would-be insurrectionists and traitors were willing to inflict on ordinary, good human beings just trying to do their job. I was watching the hearing on CNN, so that when it ended, they went immediately to a panel to talk about what they had just seen, and it was quite clear that the panel was sort of in the same state that I was, which was whatever state that is when you've been through something that has touched you and appalled you, and just sort of wrung out. And it was one of the people on the panel that said something that so resonated with me, and that was George Conway, the husband. I still can't believe that marriage is still intact, if it is. The husband of Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway. And his eyes looked red-rimmed, as if he'd been crying. Now, that might have just been me projecting. But it was so clear that he was so moved, was so emotional by what he had just seen. And he said something that I thought, yes, but not quite. And that is, he said, making a historical reference, that I thought what we just saw was a have you no decency moment. And what he was referring to, of course, was one of the witnesses at a McCarthy hearing in the 50s. Finally, a guy named Joseph Welch, finally standing up to this loathsome bully and saying, have you no decency? And I thought that Conway nailed it, because that was what the committee, by letting us hear what these American citizens endured at the hands of Trump, Giuliani, the whole crowd of his cronies, and then this ready, always eagerly ready mob, the Republican Party's brown shirts, to come in and really do the business required, which is terrorizing people, intimidating people. And another impact of all of that is that making the choice of a regular citizen to want to do this kind of work for the elections, work in state government in a position where your job would be to safeguard the elections and the process of democracy. Why, obviously, would someone want to do that if what comes with it are these dark, terrifying threats of death, of incredible slander, of constant harassment, of being literally chased out of your home? One of the witnesses, the poor woman, Shay was her name, Shay Moss, who was slandered by Rudy Giuliani as having whatever, counted ballots, gotten rid of ballots, whatever, of essentially throwing the election to Biden, which she had not done. She was simply doing a job. She was counting ballots. I'm forgetting where that sentence was going. It could go in a million places. Her testimony was so compelling. I do remember. Her life, as she feels, has been destroyed by this. She's afraid to go out of her house. She feels extraordinary guilt for having taken this job that brought terror to her grandmother's door, to her house, to her mother as well. And she had loved her job. She'd been at it for some time, over a decade. She loved it. She understood how important it was to help people vote. Her grandmother had told her that, because her grandmother had lived at a time when a black person was really not able to exercise that right because of fear and intimidation. And she was asked how many of the people that she had worked with were still working at the elections office there in Atlanta. None of them was the answer. None of them. She left. They all left. Because why would anybody in their right mind put themselves in the position of having themselves and or their families terrorized, slandered, their lives upended, and potentially ruined or taken? The FBI essentially told her and her mother to run. Did they give them money so they could? I don't think so. They were told to get the hell out of their houses to safeguard themselves. These are people that don't have a second home to flee to. These are people that don't have the resources to, disappear. So the FBI tells you get the hell out for your own safety. That's our assessment. But there's no help coming in helping them get the hell out. Something I thought about. And yet a few protesters show up, not threatening, well, one did, violence, outside a Supreme Court justice's house. And the Congress of the United States immediately clutches its pearls and throws money at this already rich person capable of securing himself and his family. But Shay Moss, Ruby Freeman, Shay's grandmother, who had a mob at her door saying they were making a citizen's arrest. All of this presages what happened then, January 6th. All of this was happening in December, when Trump and Giuliani and the others were ginning up the big lie and picking scapegoats for their brown shirts to intimidate, sending them their phone numbers. Steve Bannon would broadcast the phone numbers of people that were to be harassed and intimidated into doing the right thing. This is a democracy in action. This is not a democracy in action. This is a hellhole. And all of these people need to suffer consequences. And yet, many of these people are running right now for offices of great importance, like the governorship of Pennsylvania. They're running to be the secretaries of state in a number of states, which means they will be in position to do what has to be done to ensure that Republicans win and Democrats lose. I came upon something that I thought was just brilliant. It says it. Because, if you've watched these hearings, it is just pointed out how this whole thing is a big lie. But we know it's a big lie that a majority of Republicans, a big majority of Republicans, have swallowed, and a frightening majority of Americans have swallowed. And I saw this about the big lie, because I think this woman nailed it. This is Amanda Marcotte, and she said this: the big lie is less of a literal belief for Trump supporters and more a myth embraced because it speaks to their deeper belief that they are entitled to rule no matter what. Now, I think she's absolutely right. They know, most of them, that the big lie is a big lie. They know Trump lost. But they're willing to take it in as a myth. We have lots of myths that we celebrate in our lives because they help us order the world and our lives in a way that is comforting to us, that makes sense to us. And so for her to say, they know it's a lie, but it's a lie that they embrace because it speaks to the real thing that they're not saying, that they can't quite get themselves to say. But that is that they are entitled to rule. They are entitled to win. He goes on to say, all these Republicans, they don't believe the 2020 election was a fraud because of any actual evidence. They've never shown any. They have no evidence, none, because it doesn't exist. They don't believe the 2020 election was a fraud. It's far more that they just think that the people who voted for Joe Biden shouldn't have a right to vote in the first place. And you see how carefully they are working and have been working and will continue to work to ensure that people who vote for Joe Biden or Democrats, anybody but the right people, Republicans, that they will find it very difficult to vote. Amanda Marcotte says, listen, these Republicans know that there's no way they can argue out loud that only conservative white Christians should have the vote. That can't. Even they know you can't say that yet. So they're using this conspiracy theory, which in their hearts they know is a lie, to perpetuate their firmly held belief that only they should be allowed to rule. I mean, and I think it's absolutely right. All of these folks, these people we're talking about here, would be perfect and have been relatively perfectly okay with democracy as it played out here, because it played out, generally speaking, in a way they could tolerate. And because white Christians were the overwhelming majority of the country. And so by virtue of their numbers and just the way systems were rigged in general, keeping black people out, keeping brown people out, keeping Jewish people out, for a long time, they weren't worried about the fact that, of course, they would rule. But that's not where things are heading. And the election of Barack Obama, even though it was not apparent to us at the time, literally terrified tens of millions of Americans. And as soon as they had the opportunity, they gave us Donald Trump. I don't know how this ends up playing out. Obviously, I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death. I keep saying things like we're doomed. And I think, as I watch the hearing, that is a defeatist attitude, and I shouldn't say that. We are in grave danger. There is no doubt about that. But we ain't doomed until we give up the fight. But I think what's scaring me is the increasing realization that the fight for this country is going to get. Did I say the fight or the fright? The fight for this country is going to get frightening. It already is, but it will be more so. And as Adam Kinzinger said just the other day, people will die. We are heading into, and the fact is that only one side has this well-armed militia. It's the thugs and the brown shirts and the paramilitary wing of the Republican Party. And the fight is going to be a fight, a civil war of sorts, without a doubt. And I think just knowing that is so frightening to so many that we decide to disavow it or not be willing to acknowledge that is where we're heading. I have a caller. I'm sorry, I just saw that. Hello?
Hello. Good morning.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
I think another part of that you were talking about is I don't even consider the Republican Party. There's people out there that want the government. They don't like the government, so they'll vote any jerk in there, screw it up as bad as possible because they hate authority and they hate the government, and that's a big part of that military thing. That there's militants and all that. They don't like the authority. That you can't tell me I can't have a gun, or you can't. There's not going to be a law that says this, and that's part of that too. And
yeah, but these are the same people that will tell a woman that they now are in control of her body. So what their outrage about freedom only extends to their own desires. Yeah. Yeah.
And another thing, if this Garland does not indict Trump, then Biden needs to throw him out on his ear because he's a jerk. Because he's got it might not be good either way, but if you don't indict this guy, you're just going to have more of it. It's probably going to happen more anyway.
Well, it's going to
get some rule.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. It's
weak.
Well, listen, you don't know. Let's give him a chance. We were all thinking the January 6th committee wasn't doing anything. What are they doing? We haven't heard anything from them. And now they're showing us what they were doing. They were doing something just wondrous, just beautifully done. So let's try not to imagine that Merrick Garland is not going to act. The reality is, and I think you said it, if he does indict, there's no say. I mean, while that might be the right thing to do, of course, because you have a criminal in the White House, and we have the evidence that he was. But given our current civil war going on in this country, that indictment will be viewed by almost half the population as a politically motivated act. And consequently, when the Republicans get back in the White House, and given our electorate, that's a given, they will turn around and will head into this period of instability in which there'll be revenge taken. So we're sort of there already, where we don't have this functioning government. And if Merrick Garland does do the right thing, which is to go after Trump and all the rest of them, there will be a reaction which will be ugly as holy hell. And there's no assurance of a conviction. So I feel for the guy. I do. And my sense of him always has been he's an honorable man, but he is milquetoasty. It's why Biden chose him in the first place. He's milquetoasty. And in fact, Republicans had always liked him. He's not a flaming, liberal Democrat. He was chosen by Biden for the Supreme Court because he was a very pragmatic, moderate, reasonable man, surely going to get, Obama appointed him, surely going to get through the Supreme Court nomination process.
And I'm hoping.
Well, that didn't happen because they forgot Mitch McConnell doesn't play fair. Wouldn't let Garland.
If a Biden runs next time, I'd vote.
Oh no!
But I hope he doesn't run.
No, he shouldn't.
And I hope Governor Whitmer runs with Josh Shapiro as her running mate. That's the perfect ticket. And
we don't
really liked in Michigan, and she can run something. She's a good governor. They might badmouth her, but she's a good governor. And I think that would be your first woman president. There you go. So we got to think ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
I really don't want Biden to run again. He's starting to show his age. I hate to say it.
He's not. He would be too old. He's too old now. We've got to stop the gerontocracy. They're all too old. All of these old farts. Huh?
Yep.
They got to get out of the way. And I speak as an old fart, although I'm young compared to them. Geez, got to get out. We have got to make way for. We have kept an entire generation or two out of positions that they rightfully should have by now. It's sort of like poor friggin' Prince Charles over there in England, because his mom won't. She's not leaving till she dies, and she'll live another 10 years, and he'll be 110 when he takes over. I mean, it's just ludicrous. It's ludicrous. Yes. But, that's a monarchy. This is a democracy, and it's because old people vote for old people, and old people don't we got to stop it. And young people, if they don't step up and get to the polls, God help us. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. I do not want to not talk about the most. Well, there was such compelling testimony. The Shay Moss and her mom were extraordinarily compelling testimony, and they were the last witnesses of yesterday's session. But the first witness was equally compelling, I would say, in a different way. And that was the Arizona Speaker of the House in Arizona, a guy named Rusty, lots of people call him, Russell is his given name, Rusty Bowers. And man, I forget who said it. Even Chris Wallace on that same panel I was talking about directly after. He said he's looking at Rusty Bowers testifying and he's remembering all those old movies. Those of you who love old movies might have had the same kind of flashback. he was reminiscent of, he would be played in the movie by Jimmy Stewart or Gary Cooper. You know, because both of them made movies about honorable men getting entangled in the reality of politics. And this guy was, I mean, he blew my mind in a lot of ways, how understated he was. In his testimony, he was referring to being barraged relentlessly by the President of the United States, a man he campaigned for, voted for. And I understand has said he would vote for again if he were the running, which is mind-blowing to me. And before I heard that, I was a lot more taken by him. But here is a guy who kept his emotions intact, and it was like just the facts. And the facts were damning. And this is a guy who prays. This is a guy who takes to heart the teachings of his religion. And this is a guy who, when he takes an oath on the Bible, it means something to him. And it is sacred. And that is why he could withstand the calls, the badgering, the veiled threats, the not so veiled threats from the President of the United States, who he voted for. Because there was a larger truth that was uppermost in his mind. And that kind of honor is what we don't see. Here's a guy I don't agree with politically, probably at all. But that's a guy who is an honorable and courageous man. He kept a diary. And man, what he said in there, and even when he said it on in being asked questions yesterday, he said this, which blew me away because I so don't agree with this. But this is what undergirds his honor. He said, "It is a tenet of my faith that the Constitution is divinely inspired." Like, he goes on to just underline that. My most basic foundational beliefs. And so for me to do that being what Trump and Giuliani were asking him to do. And so for me to do that because somebody just asked me to do it is foreign to my very being. And for those of us who are not people of faith, who are quick to point out the corruption of faith, and how so many so-called Christians would certainly not be recognized as such by the man they purport to worship. And here is a guy who, I mean, and then you saw the other people. That there's the Secretary of State in Michigan, a woman who had refused, of course, to go along with the insurrectionists and the mob. And she's trying to put her little boy to bed. And she testified this. There was a mob outside her house. My stomach sunk, and I thought, are they coming with guns? Are they going to attack my house? I'm here. I'm here with my kid. I'm trying to put him to bed. Can you imagine? And this is what the Trump people have brought us to. This kind of American terror. Back to Rusty Bowers. Here's something else he wrote in his diary. It is painful to have friends who have been such a help to me turn on me with such rancor. I do not want to be a winner by cheating. Wow. Yeah, that is so basic, isn't it? That is so basic if you're an honorable person. He says, I will not play with laws I swore allegiance to. My. His daughter was dying. And he did not ever say that in his testimony. He said his daughter was gravely ill. She died in January. His daughter was dying in their house. And outside that house, night after night, they were besieged by fellow Republicans, armed, broadcasting that he was a pedophile. Never said. Never mentioned his daughter other than to say she was gravely ill. And the Secretary of State of Georgia, also who testifies and stood up to Trump, also a dutiful Republican who voted for him, his son's widow was also terrorized by having people break into her house. So both of these men who testified yesterday have buried children and then have watched as their families were terrorized, literally terrorized. This is the Republican Party's paramilitary unit and arm, and you do not see Republicans lining up to disown them. You do not see it. You know why? Because they're afraid. They're either part of them or they're afraid of them. It's as simple as that. But if you're looking for courage, you won't find it. You'll find it at the witness stand. And in fact, both Rusty Bowers and Shay Moss were given Profiles and Courage Awards by the John F. Kennedy Center this year. But I think it's true. This hearing yesterday, and if you didn't watch it, make a point of it. This hearing was the have you no decency moment. without a doubt. Okay, I have a caller. Go ahead, please.
Well, you sound in really good voice considering all you've been through.
Oh, well, thank you. I think that's because what I've been through gives me more energy than I've had for years.
Yeah, well, you sound good, so I'm glad to hear that part. You said something interesting in yesterday's show about when you went to the doctor and said, "Have you seen the hearings?" And either he was oblivious or he didn't agree with them, or what was your take on that again?
No, my take was that he was was oblivious.
Okay, because I mean, even it's what's so sad is, and you see all these comparisons people are trying to make to Watergate, is that now these hearings are political, and I don't recall that so much back 50 years ago. Or during the hearing. I mean, it was like we were aghast. Everybody, Democrats, Republicans, everybody, probably all around the world. And now it's just like there's no discussion in my office about January 6th because that would just be mayhem here and disrupt productivity completely because it's a political statement and it shouldn't be.
No.
And also I've been looking at some old documentaries and stuff, and you talk about fascism. Back in the 30s, it wasn't just Germany that was open to fascism. It was in a lot of areas. Yes, we were, and England was too. England was too.
Yes.
And then I'm seeing these rulings in France about the burkini. They're not allowing that.
Mm-hmm. Listen, this fascistic, right-wing authoritarian thread you can see throughout our history, and that's global and national. It's always there, always been there, but we have never seen it this. I don't know. I in my lifetime have certainly never seen it like this, where the future is truly in question because they've managed to destroy everyone's trust in our institutions. It's not just the fascists that don't trust our institutions. It's us who don't trust our institutions anymore. I mean, I can personally see how the Congress of the United States is non-functional now. It is we have a dysfunctional legislative branch. We have a totally politicized judicial branch. And right now we do have the executive branch, but that is very much a vulnerable holding for our side. And so as astonishing as it may seem, given that the Republicans now have gone pretty much full racist, fascist, nationalistic, and are totally willing to resort to violence, it's amazing. But they could win and gain power all the way around. They already... I mean, I don't know. This country's about to be divided by the abortion decision, which will come out probably tomorrow. I don't know. We're fucked. And see, here I go again with that. We are in a fight. We are in the fight of our lives, and we are in a fight that we better screw up our courage. This is not business as usual. It's one of the reasons I get angry at so many of our so-called leaders, because they're still acting as if somehow it's business as usual. It is not. Lines have been crossed.
So apparently, I mean, I guess the Democrats, aren't really to step it up. Like, if everybody had the same, I guess, ferocity as maybe AOC or somebody like that, is that what we need to like fight back?
I don't know. I need people who are willing to see clearly what is happening and the danger we're in, and then react accordingly. And that is not to do what has always been done. I'm not sure what it is, but damn it. And it won't, none of it will have any effect if we, the people, individually, don't decide that we are going to pay attention and take action.
Well, I know.
And screw up our courage. Otherwise we will cede it. We'll cede the country, CEDE, to the people who do not believe in democracy. They do not, this whole marvelous experiment, the city on the hill, will be finished because you will have an autocracy.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I think people say, didn't they used to say, I am a fascism and I believe in fascism, and now they don't say the words because I'm not a fascist. I'm a good American. I'm a patriotic American. We're not fascist. So it's all just it's smoke. It's so apparent, but they're just because they are not referring to themselves as that. I guess they're in their minds they're not fascists. Sound right?
Well, I don't know. My guess is they don't even know what a fascist is. My God, they call us communists. They don't know what a communist is either. They don't know anything. They don't even understand what their own democracy is, what the Constitution says. They don't. It doesn't. These are not deep thinkers.
We're not going to fix them.
No. But we got to corral them again. And you do that by holding them accountable. And that is, if our justice system is not still functional, and in some parts it is not, because they've been very busy. Trump was very busy, as you know. They didn't do anything other than pack the federal judiciary with people who would do the right thing, meaning, of course, the wrong thing. Yeah. So, I don't know. Hey, thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
All right. Hope you continue on the mend and everything. Bye-bye.
Okay, I am. Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you. I saw somebody say something that I think is true, and here again, the importance of words. We keep calling these what Trump and Giuliani and these guys tried to pull off with these alternate slates of electors, which they presented to the National Archives. That Pence was supposed to say, no, these are the electors from Pennsylvania. They had a false slate from here, which means that there are anybody on that slate from here should be indicted. One of them is the head of the Allegheny County Republican Party, I believe. DeMarco? Is he on county council too? He's one of them. They're in our government. And Michigan and Wisconsin and Arizona and all that, they had these so-called alternate electors. And somebody on Twitter said this: stop calling them alternate electors. The word alternate is suggests somehow that there's okay, you got this group and you got that group, like they're somehow equivalent. It's just you got to choose one or the other. He said these aren't alternate electors. These were random people who met in a room and declared themselves to be something they weren't. And then they fraudulently tried to get counted as representing what they, in fact, did not. They were not alternate electors. They were criminals, fraudsters, and con artists. And every time a reporter calls them alternate electors, it gives them a standing they do not deserve. I happened to be reading, I'm always reading, but I was reading The Week. And I always think I know everything that's going on, but I realize now that with so much, coming at us with such frequency, that there's a whole bunch of stuff that is just, escaping our attention. I realize it for over a week or so. I have not talked about Ukraine, although I'm about to a little bit. It's going to be mentioned. I mentioned it yesterday just in saying that Merrick Garland was there, which upset me. But one of the things that happened, I believe it was last week, was there was a summit of sorts that we hosted, the United States hosted, and it was on the West Coast, right? And it was the Summit of the Americas. That happens apparently every 3 years. And it should remind us in America that we have taken that word as representing our country, when it also actually is representative of the entire hemisphere. The Americas includes Canada, the United States, Central America, and South America. And you didn't hear much about it. And I didn't. I remember hearing that nothing happened and a whole bunch of people didn't even show up and yada yada, and so who cares? But then in The Week magazine, I read a little bit more about it. And what I read was upsetting to me, because it turns out that one of the reasons a lot of people didn't show up to this summit is because we, the hosts, did not invite everybody. So we only invited the heads of state of countries we felt were, good countries. And so we had not invited the heads of Cuba or Venezuela or Nicaragua because of their undemocratic actions. And, given what's going on in our country now, us, the America, the United States of, getting on its high horse, as if we still are somehow the exemplars of democracy, is pathetic and so extraordinarily unself-aware. And what happened is when we did that, and this would be on the Biden administration, other leaders in the Americas said, well, fuck you. So that the leftist-leaning leader of Mexico said, I ain't showing up either then. And then leaders in Bolivia did the same. And I'm not sure how. The fact is, because we don't pay any attention to this hemisphere, while this country runs toward fascism, much of the Americas is going in the other direction. They're going left. Colombia being the most recent, just elected as their president a former rebel. Chile has, in the last year, elected a leftist as president. Peru, Honduras. And so maybe if this comes around in 3 more years, we won't invite any of those people either. Who the hell do we think we are? And I just want to, I say this, I see I have a caller, I'm coming at you. In this article about it, a commentator in, I believe, Argentina, who took umbrage at the United States actions, said, and we're supposed to somehow listen to this. He's talking about the rest of the countries of this hemisphere, coming from an America that can't stop its own violent rampage of mass shootings, cannot disarm its own right-wing militias, can't even supply its children with baby formula. And we're supposed to somehow kowtow to them? He went on to say, these are all the markers of an underdeveloped country. And he pointed out that a lot of other countries, including many in our hemisphere, are watching what's going on in this country. And what they see is the decline, the obvious decline of a once great, flash in the pan empire. And they're watching as, and this is a quote, we slip toward the terrifying specter of fascism. Yeah. Okay, caller, sorry, I just saw you. Go ahead.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
I called to talk about the why Democrats can't see what's happening or why we don't take action. And I think it's denial, particularly for Schumer and Pelosi and Biden. They are old school where you got into a smoke-filled room and you compromised. And they still want to will that to be so.
You see, but that's denial. Because that's, I mean, how many times do they have to bump into the reality of Mitch McConnell and the current Republican Party to see that that's not going to happen?
Great. And you and Susan were talking yesterday about Germans, Jews and gays that didn't leave when the writing was on the wall. It's because the truth is so scary that denial steps in and says, this can't be so. And it's not until you're on a train about to be put in a, in a furnace before, and maybe even then your denial doesn't slip.
Maybe.
Right? Because the writing is on the wall, people.
Yeah.
I'm learning Spanish for a particular reason.
Yeah.
Because they're coming after us now. They're coming after you guys. They're coming after us. They're coming after us. In Baltimore, you were talking yesterday about the ways they're coming after gays and lesbians. They're burning down houses in Baltimore that have gay pride flags in front of them. I think they're up to 4 now.
You're kidding. See, I haven't seen that.
No. So the writing is on the wall, people.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I understand why old people don't get it. It must be tough to give up everything you have and run. And I understand why Joe Biden wants to believe the world that he and Nancy and Schumer can craft the world to be what it was like. It's no longer like that. That world is gone. Right. That world is gone. Adapt or die.
Well, yeah. And I also think right now, the question is stand and fight or run. I think we're still at the stand and fight phase.
And that's the adapt part. We have to adapt to these horrible tactics. And we can't pretend that if we just get more Democrats to vote, then we'll surely have a big enough margin and we'll show them. No, we had the exact same margin that Trump had over Clinton, and that wasn't good enough. It doesn't matter how many more millions of Democrats we get out to vote. They're fixing this. And they showed us their hand. That's what gets me is, like, they showed us their hand and we're not believing them.
No, I know. They're not being, it's all right. Boy, you want transparency? They are being totally transparent about what they intend to do. And it is dismantle our democracy.
And all we hear from our side is, we got to get out there and vote. We got to get more people to vote. No, we got to play dirty. Right? And part of me blames Obama because he should have just seated Garland. He should have sent him to the Supreme Court and said, no, peace. The Constitution says guide. It doesn't say approve. He's on there. And put it in John Roberts' hands. No, this is the guy. Hey, Garland, show up on tomorrow. You're a Supreme Court justice. Right?
I wonder if Garland would have done it.
That's what that.
But that's what Republicans would do. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Well, it's again, we're bringing a powder puff to a knife fight.
Right.
I mean, we are just.
And the Republicans would have kept Ruth Bader Ginsburg on life support until after.
Right.
Until after Biden was confirmed.
Right.
Now, I don't blame her family for not wanting to torture her, but you can't tell me if that was one of those Republicans that he wouldn't still be on life support. So they play dirty. We're like, we think that we're polite.
We still got the Queensbury rule book, and it is, and we'll go down with it. I agree with you. We better grow a few spines and balls and everything else. But denial ain't going to cut it. Never does.
And when I say adapt or die,
we're in a war.
Right. And when I say adapt or die, I don't mean die of natural causes.
No.
I mean get shot.
Yeah. Right. Right. People will die. No, people will die. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I want us to acknowledge right now the extraordinary courage of so many people, and who you got to figure are marked, and that would be Lynn Cheney, and that would be Raffensperger. These people, and even now Rusty Bowers, who would still vote for Trump.
I don't understand that. Can you?
No, I don't either. I'd like to have him explain that, because if the Constitution means so much to him and he thinks it's divinely, why would he vote to put a man in power who clearly didn't follow the tenets? It makes no sense to me, unless
he thinks Biden is so horrible. The Democrats are so horrible.
You think that?
Even a corrupt person is better than a Democrat.
It's really something.
Does it bother you when they say Democrat Party?
Yes, and they still
the difference between a noun and an adjective.
Yeah, of course it does. But that's again, they miss no opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. Stay safe.
Sure. You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right, guys. Again, if misery loves company, this is the place. Sorry. Oh, dear. Yeah, I'm thinking that the abortion decision is going to come down tomorrow. Is anybody else thinking that? Oh, God. And we've got another hearing tomorrow. I hope you're able to watch these things. This is every bit as riveting as Watergate, and I think more so. More so. Incredible. All right. Let's stiffen our spines, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay?
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.